In this video, I'll share with you some cool and interesting web scraping and data collection project ideas. Now, this video is meant to act as inspiration. You may not build out all of the projects that I mentioned here, but hopefully it gives you an idea for something that you could make, or at minimum motivates you to go out there and work on some coding project. Now, all of the ideas that I have here are related to getting data in some format, mostly scraping it from a website, say like Airbnb or a realtor website or something along those lines. And in this video, I'll actually show you a few simple demos of projects that I've built out that kind of fit the theme or the idea that I'm sharing with you. So the last thing I'll mention here before we get into the ideas is that these ideas are language agnostic. So you can really create these projects in any language, technology, framework that you'd like. And specifically here, I've done so in JavaScript using React. And then I've just written some basic Python scripts that actually output a graph or give us some data kind of in the console. Now, all of the data that I'm getting for these projects is coming from a service called Bright Data. So what I've done is I've set up some data collectors, and these are things that will run directly on the Bright Data platform. And then I'm able to access the data from these collectors from an API, read them into my program, and then use the data however I please. Now, Bright Data has actually been kind enough to sponsor this video, and we'll talk more about that later. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with project idea number 1. Now, this project has to do with travel and specifically accommodations. So finding where you're going to stay when you travel to some city or some destination for a certain period of time. So I'll show you a demo in a second, but the general idea here would be to make some type of application that allows you to put in some filters or criteria. So like a maximum price, a number of nights that you're staying, when you're checking in, number of guests you're going to have with you, the location obviously you're going to be traveling to, and then have this site go and search, or not this site, have this application go and search multiple travel websites like Booking.com, Airbnb, Expedia, wherever else you'd look for hotels or accommodations. Find all of the results on those sites that match your criteria, and then aggregate all of those in one place where you can look at them and sort them by price, reviews, go and click the link, etc. So let me show you a quick demo here of what I mean and what I've built out. Now, this is a very simple, slim, bare-bone version of what I described. This only searches one website because I didn't want to spend a ton of time building this out. I built a few of these projects for this video, but what this does is look on Airbnb for any listings that match the criteria of number of guests, check-in, check-out, and the location, and then aggregates them, puts them all on one page with their title, a little description, the price for the total amount of the stay, and then gives you a button here where you can actually view the listing and go in and see if it's right for you. So again, very simple. You could obviously make this a lot more complicated, but this is a quick demo, right? I can view the different listings on Airbnb and it's showing them to me all on one page. Of course, I could add Booking.com, I could add Expedia, and I can search anywhere else I want. For now, I'm just doing Airbnb, sorry. So here I'm looking in Toronto, but if we want, we can change this to say Seattle. Let's say we want to check in maybe April 20th, and we want to check out, let's go April 27th, so for a full week. Let's search. This is going to take a second. Once it's done, I'll be right back, and then I'll describe to you how I actually collected this data. All right, so there we go. We can see the data has loaded. Now, the prices are a bit off just because I think I've kind of sliced these incorrectly. This is really $1,270, obviously not $1.27. The dot is kind of like a comma, right? But if I click in to this one here, you can see we have our entire unit, entire condo hosted by David. It is $1,270 in total, right, as I was saying. So there you go. We can scroll down, see all of the other results that we have. And if we had multiple websites, of course, we could say, you know, what website they were from, so on and so forth. Anyways, though, I want to show you how I'm actually getting this data because it is interesting how I'm grabbing this. And you can do this in many different ways, but as I said, I am using Bright Data, and I'm using something called a data collector from Bright Data. So these data collectors are really just tools that are hosted by Bright Data, and they allow you to send them inputs. So you can specify the inputs yourself, or if it's a pre-built collector, they'll just have some inputs you can use. It will then go actually do the web scraping based on your inputs, grab all of the data from the website or websites if you're doing multiple. It will then send that data to you in whatever format you want. So it can send it to an API endpoint you have using a webhook. You can download a JSON file, CSV file, really whatever you want. However, if you do want to use these data collectors, you do need to sign up for an account with Bright Data. You can do that for free by clicking the link in the description. And if you want some credit on your account, just book a really quick demo. It's like a few minute meeting with someone where you go through some compliance and kind of learn about the platform. And then they'll give you $25 in free credit towards your Bright Data account, which is more than enough to mess around with the collectors. Lastly, if you do want to use this in more of a business setting, you're going to be downloading all kinds of data, doing a bunch of web scraping. You may want to actually make a deposit. If you do that, so you put your own money into this platform, Bright Data will match that up to $250. So totally up to you guys, obviously. It is cool. I haven't paid any money for this. I've been using it. And now let me just give you a quick view at what the collector looks like so you can see if this is of interest to you or not. So here I'm on Bright Data. I'm going to go to data collecting platform. You have data sets collectors. I'm going to click on collectors. I can close this, and I have a few different collectors I've been working with here. So one for YouTube, one for real estate data, and then my Airbnb one. Ignore the names. This isn't really what I probably should name them. But here, if I click on this, you can see my success rate, average duration, all of this kind of stuff. And if I go in here and go to advanced actions, I can actually edit the code. So this is a custom web scraper that I wrote that goes to Airbnb.com, and it grabs me the descriptions, the images, the total prices, and the titles from that website. So I can preview that by clicking this link, and then it will go and grab the data. It takes a second, so we don't necessarily have to look through all of this. But what's interesting is if I go back here, I can actually click here and I can start this by an API call, or I can start it manually. So I can run this in multiple ways. Like I can just run it from the website and see the results, or I can go to initiate by API, and then I have an API call that I can do where I send an API token. Obviously, I'm not going to leak that to you guys, and then it will return my data in whatever way I set up. So if I go back here to collectors, I go to Airbnb and I go to my delivery preferences. You can see that I want my data in JSON format, and I want it from a webhook. So I put in where I want this to be sent. And then once the data is collected, it sends that to the webhook. So to quickly summarize how this works here, I set up a data collector on Bright Data, set up my inputs. I then trigger this collector to start running by an API call. So I do that from my backend. Then once the data is finished being collected, it sends that data to this URL, which is just the back end of my application in a JSON format. I then take that data and display it on the front end. So that's what's going on. I'll lastly just show you here if we go to collectors and I try to make a new collector. There's a bunch of pre-built ones. You don't have to make one like I did, but you can if you want to, for like YouTube, Walmart, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, so on and so forth. So obviously this is great. There's a bunch of pre-built options here. You can customize these pre-built options, or alternatively, if you want to make one from scratch, you can code it from scratch, or you can use the Bright Data Chrome extension. So if I go to a site, say like Walmart, so just go to Walmart here and go to the site. Okay, hopefully it's going to load properly. You can see my Bright Data extension opens up just because I have it loaded. I can close it over here, just a Chrome extension. And from here, what I can do is select stuff that I want to be scraped from this website. So if I want to scrape like all these images, for example, I select them. I can go to multi and hit collect, and then say, okay, I want to grab all of these different images. And then it will create a field over here with all of the images that I have. And I can view the JSON, which would give me the URLs to all of these images. So really easy to pick the different data that you want. And obviously you can choose it in a dynamic way. So if you were looking at like a search page or results, then you'd grab like the top 10 results, or all of the titles, or all of the prices, really whatever data it is that you want. Anyways, that's all I have for you for Bright Data. I just wanted to demo how I'm getting the data here because that's not really obvious in a lot of the projects. Obviously, you don't have to use this. There's all kinds of other ways to do this. However, if you are going to be scraping large amounts of data, this is one of the more efficient ways to go about it. And these tools are just really easy to use. So if you want to check them out, link in the description. With that said, though, let's go to idea number 2. So moving on, the next project idea I have has to do with real estate. Now, there's all kinds of things you can do with real estate data. Obviously, real estate is very hot right now, at least where I live in Canada. The market is absolutely absurd, and people are just buying properties like there's no tomorrow, even though the price is drastically increasing. Anyways, in terms of some specific ideas here within real estate, of course, you're going to be grabbing a bunch of data. You could grab data about a specific property. You could grab data about a specific area or kind of general geographic region. Maybe you do something like set up a profile or kind of a filtering criteria for your ideal property, and then scrape a bunch of different websites and return to yourself results that match that criteria. Maybe you're an investor, you're looking for something that's a certain size, certain area, certain price. Again, you could kind of plug all that stuff in and then find a property that matches that. Again, I know this stuff exists. You can find websites that do this for you, but you guys are programmers. You're looking for programming ideas related to web scraping, and that's what I have for you. Now, of course, if you are a business, it would definitely be useful to have a ton of real estate data that you could look through, train machine learning models on, all of that kind of stuff. And well, you can scrape that, grab that data and use it. Now, what I've done here for this demo is quite simple. All I've done is looked at the information about a single property. So the web scraper or kind of collector that I'm using for Bright Data allows me to send an unlimited number of addresses. It then goes, looks at all of those addresses and grabs all of the data about those properties and returns that to me. Now, what I'm doing specifically here is I'm looking at the estimated value of a single property over 5 years and then graphing that so we can have a look at it. So kind of just a random idea, I guess, I came up with related to real estate. But if I run the demo that I have here, you can see that it gives me the chart of the estimated value or price of a property over the last 5 years. Now, first of all, this is kind of just shocking, right? When you look at a 5-year chart of real estate, almost everything, at least where I live, Canada, even in kind of US, is up by at least 100%. Kind of wild that in 2017, something would be worth 140 grand, and now it's close to $300,000. Anyways, just a basic matplotlib program I set up here to make this graph. If there was multiple properties that I was searching for, then it would graph all of those, but I just have one right now because that's the simplest. And if I go to my data.json file, which is all of the data about this property, you can see that I'm getting all this stuff, like we get rent estimation, the estimate 5-year history of the value of the property, which is what I'm graphing, the size and square footage, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, address, current value, symbol, right? Like all this data. And of course, you guys can find something meaningful to do with that. So that was kind of project idea number 2, something related to real estate. Grab some housing prices, grab the average prices, do some type of graph, have some user interface for it, or really just send yourself links, maybe an email with properties that are going to be appealing to you. And again, you can run this scraper every 4 hours, every 1 day, every week, however you'd like to do it. And yeah, there you go. That is my project idea number 2. All right, so now we're moving on to project idea number 3. Now, this one has to do with YouTube channels, but let me get a bit more specific here and give you some context. So I have a programming course called programmingexpert.io. Check it out from the link in the description. Anyways, for that course, we do paid marketing, advertising. We target specific YouTube channels, specific keywords on Google. Whatever you do for like a traditional marketing campaign, we do that for Programming Expert as well. Now, we have channels that we know that we would target, right? Like my channel, there's probably ads on it for Programming Expert. However, there's other channels on YouTube that would meet kind of a general criteria that we just don't know about. So I thought it would be a cool idea to kind of come up with a program that would search YouTube for channels that met a specific criteria. I'll tell you what the criteria is, I guess, in a second, or how we kind of specify that, and then give us a list of all of those channels as well as information about the channel, like when it was started, number of views, number of videos, number of subscribers, all of that kind of stuff. So to give you a general sense of what I'm talking about here, the program, essentially what it does is it goes to YouTube. Now, let me just open up a tab here that has YouTube. So it goes to YouTube, it searches in some term. So something like, let's say, learn to code. You pick the query you want it to type in this case, maybe something like learn to code. It then goes through every single channel here that has posted a video. So we'd go to like CS Dojo, for example, click on the about page, it then reads the description of this, gets the stats of the channel, and then returns that. Now, if the description contains some certain keywords, so I think I did something like programming, coding, software engineering, code, like I just specified some random keywords essentially, then it returns to me that channel as well as information about that channel. And that then is kind of a potential candidate that we would do like a paid advertisement on. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense, but I wanted to come up with like a legitimate use case, and this is one, right? Finding YouTube channels that we could target with ads that meet a certain criteria. So I've done it in the coding space, but of course you could do this in any other space as well. Anyways, if I go here and I run kind of the demo, you can see that it gives me all of the channels that meet the criteria sorted by subscribers. So I have Code with Harry, Programming with Mosh, CS Dojo, Programming Knowledge, so on and so forth. You guys probably know most of the channels that are on this list. We have, of course, this great one, Tech with Tim, almost at 1 million subscribers. Help me out, hit that subscribe button. Anyways, You get the point, right? It's giving me this list. Now, this is just displaying the data that I already had because I didn't want to run this scraper from scratch. But if we go to data, you can see there's a bunch of information about every channel, right? I'm just displaying a subset, but we have, all of the different tags for the channel. We have the URLs for the channel. We have, what else would be here? Like number of views, channel name, URL, yeah, contact email, stuff like that. So actually contact email could be useful as well. If they have one, then you could reach out to the contact email or send a, email list or send an email blast, all the channels, whatever. I'm just trying to come up with some examples of stuff you could do with something like this. So hopefully that is helpful and, I don't know, somewhat maybe inspiring, gives you an idea of something to do. But just to run this one more time with some fresh data, if I go here and I click on run, you can see that I can enter a query. So maybe I enter a query of like robotics, and then the keywords that I put in here determine if the channel is going to be relevant or not. And the keywords, again, we're searching for in the channel description. So I could search for something in robotics, I don't know, like tech. I don't know, let's go with programming. We could go with robot, whatever, pick whatever terms you want. And then what happens here is it constantly pulls the, the data collector endpoint to see if the data is ready to be retrieved. Once it is, it then displays all of the data and downloads it. Now, this does take a minute because you have to go through and search every single channel, go to the about page. So I'm not going to wait for this to finish, but you get the point. That was project number 3. All right, so moving on now to my 4th and final web scraping project idea, and this one has to do with e-commerce. Now, I did not make a demo for this because I already did 3 demos before, and I was pretty tired from writing all of those, so I'm just gonna give you a few kind of general ideas here. So in the e-commerce, section, you could be a consumer or you could be a business, right? If you were a consumer and you're working on a project here, maybe you'll do something like compare the price of toothpaste or any general item at maybe a Walmart, a Target, a Shoppers Drug Mart, a convenience store, any other places that you may shop at. Maybe you'll look at the history of prices of a specific item over time, like you'll track that. Maybe you do something like see if an item is in stock at a certain store, if it's something that is frequently out of stock, like a graphics card or a computer component, maybe even something like a new car. I think there's a lot of issues with new cars recently, at least that's kind of what I've heard and been seeing. But you get the point, right? There's all kinds of stuff you could do where you're searching for products, looking for the availability of products, checking the stock. Maybe you just want a general dashboard that gives you like the reviews on products, all kinds of stuff you can write. Now, from a business perspective, you're probably more interested in collecting more data where you can kind of analyze your competitors. You can see what's selling where, how many reviews certain items have. Maybe you're into drop shipping and there's some specific data that you're constantly looking at and that would be helpful to kind of aggregate and bring in one place. Maybe you build yourself a really general dashboard that web scrapes some information from different sites that you're constantly checking. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, right? So I just wanted to rattle off a few ideas here and hopefully get you thinking about some stuff you might want to do in e-commerce. Now, in case this is helpful, Bright Data does have a bunch of pre-built collectors here for e-commerce. So there's stuff like eBay, AliExpress, Amazon.com.ca, the Indian one, Costco, Flipkart, whatever, all these things I actually haven't even heard of, Etsy. You get what I mean, right? There's all kinds of websites that you can look through. Now, the great thing with these collectors is that you can use multiple of them at the same time. So you can trigger, the Wayfair, Walmart, Target, and I don't know, let's go eBay collector to all start running at the same time. And then as they finish, you can collect all of the data, aggregate that data, and do with it what you would like. So I'll just end off the video here by mentioning that there is, of course, other ways to scrape data. You don't need to use a tool like this, although it is a lot easier than writing your own web scraper. If you're working in Python, you can use something like Selenium or Beautiful Soup. Again, this is not going to be as scalable as a solution like this, but if you're just trying to grab a few small pieces of information, that's definitely suitable. And I have entire tutorials on my channel on how to use modules like Selenium for web automation, Beautiful Soup for scraping HTML documents. And if you're working in another programming language, I'm sure you can find some other free resources and documentation that will help you scrape. If you are really looking at this from a business use case, then I would recommend checking out a site like Bright Data. But with that said, I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, leave any ideas you have in the comment down below, and I hope to see you in another YouTube video.